My contract got canceled 2 weeks in. I usually DM the landlord and negotiate the lease in case of contract cancellation. Most are surprisingly flexible, both in Furnished Finder and Airbnb. I never sign a lease without an I can get out of the lease with proof of cancellation clause anymore. If you are looking to have a midterm rental in 2024 and nurses are part of that strategy, then you might stand out from your competition by advertising the fact that you have a flex policy for the first week or two of their stay. And the reason for that is because, as demonstrated through the Reddit thread, a lot of nurses are getting their contracts canceled. I think this is because during COVID, traveling nurses in particular, were getting a lot of contracts, and so they were a very strong demographic. There was a lot of demand for them. But since COVID, a lot of their contracts have stopped because there's just not as much need for traveling nurses in urban centers and otherwise. So for this reason, I recommend, if you want to pursue traveling nurses, which is a whole other topic, but if you want to pursue traveling nurses, I recommend offering this flex policy, but also advertising it. You might be thinking though, well, I don't want to absorb a week or two of vacancy or 3 weeks or a month if a nurse comes in and they get canceled. That is a totally fair point, but you should just know this is the reality of the market right now. So if you want to pursue the nurse demographic, then you kind of have to build this in. And if you don't want to pursue the nurse demographic, then you don't need to build it in. But this is a special issue with nurses. And so if you recognize it, you're going to be more attractive to them, but then you also have to be comfortable with your risk on that. I'm Erin Spradlin, and in this video, I'm going to give you 6 tips for midterm rental success in 2024. Yes, that was tip 1, and now I'm going to give you 5 more. Just so you know, I've been doing midterm rentals since 2017. I'm a consultant and a real estate agent for a lot of investors that do midterm rentals, and I have written 3 books on the topic, which are available on Amazon. If you are interested in any or all of that, including one-to-one consulting, just email me and we'll figure something out. Like and subscribe is great if you feel inclined. Also, if you hit the subscribe button, you will get notifications every time I do a new video. Okay, so tip number 1 was to have a flexible cancellation policy. Tip number 2 is to be at least on 2 different platforms. Common question I get in my consulting calls is, how many platforms do I need to be on? Do I need to be on niche platforms? I'm actually only on 2 platforms, and I recommend that you are only on as many as you need to succeed, and usually I think that's 2. So I recommend, as a mandatory platform, Airbnb. While Airbnb is sort of understood to be the furnished short-term rental platform, so under 30 days, they are definitely making waves and pushing hard to be in this 30+ day space. And just because of their brand recognition and their volume, I think it's really smart to be on Airbnb. The secondary platform, kind of a tie for me, I would say Zillow or Furnished Finder. Zillow appeals to me because Zillow has the same kind of volume that Airbnb does. And even though Zillow is classically thought of as a platform for unfurnished rentals, you will find people will go on to Zillow and then they convert quite well when they are presented with an option of a long-term rental that is furnished. On the flip side, Furnished Finder is smaller. They have a smaller group of people looking at them. However, they've been in this space for quite some time and continue to be in this space and have a lot of awareness in the medical community and a little bit outside of the medical community. Airbnb number 1, and then a second platform, either Furnished Finder or Zillow, is my recommendation. That is where I would start. And I think if you're having trouble sourcing tenants at that point, I would modify those listings before I would add a third platform. All right, tip number 3, smaller is better. So this is a little weird to have in this section because you already own the place, but this is for people that own multiple places, or maybe they have an ADU in the back and something in the front, or they have a basement apartment and they're trying to figure out if they should rent the whole unit or if they like rent the ADU together with the main house, or if they should rent the whole house including the basement or split it up. My advice to you is smaller is better. A 3-2 or smaller is usually perfect for this demographic. And the reason for that is because when you think about who's in the midterm rental space, so who has the capacity to travel for a month or 2 months or 4 months and needs a furnished place, those people typically don't have kids. It's probably going to be a couple or singles, and that group doesn't need a massive house, nor do they want to clean it, nor do they want to pay for it. So there's going to be a disconnect for what you want them to pay versus what they actually need. Obviously, there's exceptions to this rule, but with everything in rental investing, you are trying to appeal to the masses and not go after a niche demographic. It's one thing if you have an in and you go after that niche demographic, then that makes sense, but most people watching these videos don't have an in. And this actually speaks to people that are trying to pursue traveling nurse companies or insurance agencies. I know that there's a ton of creators in the space that talk about making those phone calls or getting in front of them. I think that that really works against you. I think it worked for the creators in the past because there was a lack of awareness and a lack of people offering midterm rentals. So you could get through to someone when you called one-to-one with insurance or with the traveling nurse agencies. But that's really changed now because there's a lot of awareness of this space. I repeatedly hear on my consulting calls that people are making phone calls to hospitals, traveling nurse, insurance companies, and they're not getting through to anyone, which is why I recommend going broad on the platforms versus doing niche. You want to be in front of the masses. You don't want to be going after a small group, especially a small group with a lot of competition, which is exactly what's happening with nurses and insurance right now. Tip number 4, price on the monthly level. Some months are going to be worth more to you than other months. Midterm renters shop like short-term renters, but then they typically behave like long-term renters once they are installed. So you might be wondering, what does that mean? What are the implications of that? What that means is that more demand and more people shopping for a midterm rental during high season in your area than there is during low season. So a great thing about this is that you can price on the monthly level. This is specific to Airbnb. It's actually not specific to the other platforms. So November and December are always hard to find people. And so November and December are worth a lot less to you, and you are going to drop the price dramatically to get someone in and to close the vacancy. But you don't want that to work against you for the rest of the year. And so if you have a lease where you've really dropped the price because you're trying to shore up that vacancy and you want to get someone in there, then that's going to work against you all 12 months because typically with leases or people that come in for a while, they're thinking about it as the same cost annually. But on Airbnb and in the midterm space, you're going to drop the price for November and December, but then bring it up for most places in the United States. You're going to bring it up during the summer season when it's really popular. So you are charging based on how much that month is worth to you. Again, the beauty of this situation is that you don't have to eat it all year long. You can just take a lower rent, cover your costs during the down season, and then pull it back up when there's lots of demand in the future. All right, tip number 5, utilize the headline. So be strategic with your headline. Good marketing for midterm rentals, and this is true for both Airbnb and Furnished Finder, means calling out the pros of your place in the headline. So being very specific about what is great about your place in the headline and really avoiding words that don't communicate much. And what I'm talking about here is do not use words like cozy, near, spacious, light-filled. Those words are subjective, and also your pictures should reflect that, except for near. And for near, you want to take that out and be really specific, like 5 miles to the airport, 5 miles to the hospital, 5 blocks to restaurants and shops, etc. And you're going to shorten this in the headline to get it in, but if you can't, then it should be the first thing that's showing up in the description. But that's what I mean about being strategic with the headline, is taking out those really generic terms that don't mean anything and spelling out exactly what is better about your place. Some other information that will help you to put in the headline is whether or not you're pet friendly or if you have king size beds. And I know these are attractive and popular amenities because Airbnb has just added filters for them. All right, final tip, 6th tip, rent your property on the house level and not on the room level. If you are renting out a room in your primary residence, this advice will not work for you. But if you have the ability to rent out an entire home, I strongly recommend renting the entire house instead of renting by the room. There's a couple of reasons why I don't love the rent by the room model. First and foremost is that tenants don't love rent by the room. I feel like I know this because I get a lot of feedback from people that are having trouble renting out by the room. And the first thing I always recommend to them is we'll switch it to a whole house and see if that helps. And usually it does. And the reason why I speculate that tenants don't love rent by the room is kind of twofold. One is that at the end of the day, one is that you may just not want to be engaging in small talk with strangers every time you go to the kitchen or every time you go to the laundry. It'd be hard to get away from that. That's the number one thing that makes rent by the room not very attractive to a lot of people that are in this space. And this applies to nurses as well. So I think nurses make a certain amount of money. There's a premium for privacy and not so much on having a lot of housemates. And I guess to prove this point, how many people do you personally know that could afford to live by themselves but choose to live with a bunch of friends? Probably not that many is my guess. The second issue with this is specific to females and unwanted male attention, whether that's just being hit on every time you leave your room and or feeling like you're in physical danger. When you think about it, the person that's renting the room does not know these other people. They have not signed off on the other people that live in the house. They've signed off on the room. So right outside of their bedroom door that they may find hard to be around or a threat. So for that reason, that's why I think the tenants don't like the rent by the room. But on the flip side, I don't think the landlord should like the rent by the room model either. And that's because rent by the room is a lot of work. So if you just rent out your whole property, it's one lease for that amount of time. It's a group of people that have elected to live together. So if they have issues, they're going to resolve them together and not bring it to you. But a rent by the room situation, if someone is particularly filthy in the kitchen or someone leaves their laundry in the washer or dryer all the time, they're going to come to you to complain about it because they don't have that relationship with the other housemates and you've put everyone together. And then secondarily, you have all these different leases who are leasing on the bedroom level. So one, it creates issues as far as occupancy rates. You have to be worried about keeping all the different rooms occupied all the time. But then you also have all these leases coming and going. I just think it's a lot more work and it's enough work that it's not appealing to me. If you want more information on the pros and cons of midterm renting versus rent by the room, I recommend this video. If you want more feedback from nurses about their experience and what they want out of rentals, I recommend this video. And if you want to know how I've kept a 92% occupancy rate in my midterm rentals, I recommend this video.